Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host Dr. Sine and I'm covering a horrendously shocking crime today. With a fair warning here guys that this is not for any viewer out there as the details are totally distressing and quite graphic. Also, this is not for any viewers under the age of 18. Thank you. Let's get into this straight away. This is fairly long, guys. I will try and not make it too long. Sef Gonzales was born in the Philippines on the 16th of September 1980. To affluent businessman and Filipino lawyer Teodoro Teddy Gonzales and Mary Loiva Gonzales as their first and only son. And 2 years later, the Gonzales family was blessed with another child, a daughter whom they named Claudine. Life was good for them until after the 1990 Luzon earthquake, which destroyed the family's home and business, a newly built 40-room hotel. Little Sef was stuck under the rubble and would have died if not for his father's brave efforts that rescued the little boy. The Gonzales family emigrated to Australia thereafter, and the family settled in Sydney, Australia. And by the late 1990s, Teddy had re-qualified as an Australian lawyer and set up a successful law firm working as an immigration lawyer. His wife, Loiva, assisted him in his office. Life seemed to be great again, and these two hardworking people were building a good life for their family and were spending a lot of money on the kids' education and planning a good, solid future for themselves. The business was doing very well, and they were able to purchase a beautiful home in a lovely residential area in Northridge in Sydney, Australia. The devout Catholic family appeared to be close-knit, and the parents were focused on the education of the kids, so the kids would have access to good jobs one day and would not have to go through any hardship. Teddy and Loiva were full of hopes and were strict parents with expectations for their children, and punished them if they broke the rules or they were not listening to their parents or studying hard. The Gonzales couple in particular had hoped their son would perform very well academically and embark on a career in medicine or law. Sef Gonzales attended Parramatta High School in Sydney, and by the time he faced his university entrance exams, he wasn't really getting good marks, good grades. He was considered by many who knew him as a bright person. However, he was not at all into his studies at that time. He was into music big time, and his ambition was to become a singer, professional entertainer, and a rich businessman, plus a model. He was expected by his parents to give up his musical and singing aspirations, and so he then enrolled at the University of New South Wales for a science degree. His parents thought that after obtaining a Bachelor of Science, Sef would be able to apply for medicine. However, Sef was not at all doing well at university. He failed his first semester. He was angry and frustrated that he was not getting anywhere in his life, and he was not happy doing his studies. He withdrew after 2 years and enrolled in a Bachelor of Law course at Macquarie University in Macquarie Park, New South Wales. Performing poorly again in his unit courses, Seth failed his exams again in the first semester. He was too frightened to appear as a failure in the eyes of his parents, so he decided to cover up his poor results by falsifying his grades. The parents were happy as the reports given to them were showing that Sef was doing well. And life went on. Sef would go to his parents' office and help out a little while whenever he could. Seemed like a good responsible son. The The parents must have thought that their hopes were all becoming a reality. However, Sef bragged to his sister that he had been so clever and that he had given the parents a fake report card. And she kept it confidential and did not reveal this to her parents. She didn't want to talk about this. Life was going on, and Sef was becoming more and more crazy about his ambition to become a professional musician and a famous model. It was by then that Sef became known amongst everyone who knew him as a person who told a lot of untruths, and that he was sort of living in a world of fanciful thoughts and creating falsehoods about being a Calvin Klein model in the Philippines and also a popular entertainer in the Philippines as well. Not true. A family friend, Daisy Diaz, ran a website for Sef about his musical achievements and his successful modeling career, and Sef was seemingly happy that life was going his way, at least in his wild imagination. It was at this time that his sister Claudine fell in love with a guy, and the parents were very much against Claudine dating anyone because they thought that this sort of distraction would affect her studies. They immediately sent her to Melbourne to live with an aunt there and go to school there. But she continued her love affair long distance for a while. Sef had written a letter to this boy, whom Claudine was dating, threatening to bash him up, as he said he belonged to a gang and that he was Claudine's brother, and was ordering the guy to break it off with his sister immediately. The boy got scared and broke it off with Claudine. Infuriated at Sef, Claudine went to her parents with the information that Sef was failing all the courses and that the reports had been all falsified. Now, guys, it was the parents' turn to get infuriated and totally disappointed too, as they could not cope with the shock that this news had given them. They confronted Sef and threatened to take his privileges away. Certain privileges, guys, like a green Ford Festiva, Sef simply loved. The Gonzales were parents who had given their two kids a luxurious life and had bought them cars and everything that would make their lives comfortable, and that they were also parents who expected obedience and high educational achievements. At this time, Sef was seeing a girl whom his parents did not approve of. Sef argued with his mother over this affair, and his parents threatened to disinherit him. Sef thought that he was deeply in love with this young woman who was 4 years older than him, but she left him anyway after a brief romance and went back to an old boyfriend. Sef was devastated and was hoping that she would come back. That is some background information about Sef Gonzales and his family, guys. It was 10th July 2001. Sef left the family's law firm, where he worked part-time, as I said before, and headed back to his family home. Claudine was back from Melbourne as it was holidays, and she was studying in her room upstairs. The parents were still at work. Seth had gone later to meet a friend, Sam, and they had had dinner, played games at the arcade, and by the time he returned home, after dropping Sam off, it was quite late, nearly 12 midnight, I guess. Sef opened the door and walked into a horror scene. He saw the body of his father lying in a pool of blood in the lounge, still clutching his briefcase, and his mother's bloodied body lying a few feet away from his dad. The groceries she had walked in with spread all over the floor. Take a look, guys. Pretty horrifying pictures. The bloody scene was horrifying, and as an agonized Sef is heard calling the police frantically. Listen to the call. I'm playing the call for you now.
Sef Gonzales.
Please come! Someone has hurt my parents and my family.
Sorry? Someone has shot my parents. Please come.
What's someone's what?
Someone has shot my parents. I think they're all breathing. They're on the floor.
What suburb are you in?
They're not breathing. What do I do?
What suburb are you in?
North right.
North Ryde. And your parents are both,
Moving.
they're both being shot, have they?
I don't know. There's a lot of blood everywhere. My mom.
Just hold on. Yeah, we will. We're sending the ambulance now.
Sef then had also frantically run to his neighbor's house and had told them that his parents had been shot. The police got there immediately and investigations began. Guys, this is horrible, I know. I'm warning you. A business rival had sent Teddy Gonzalez a threatening email some weeks back, and the police were investigating that angle as well. In the days following the murders, Gonzalez appeared on television. Sef Gonzales appeared on television asking for the killers to come forward, saying he wanted justice and offering a reward of $100,000. I must tell you that a large notice was also written on the wall at the scene of the murders in blue spray paint that read, F of Asians, KKK. So now, the idea that it may have been a hate crime was also kind of a red herring there. Based on the initial evidence, New South Wales police investigators assumed that the murders could be part of a robbery gone wrong. However, given the absence of a forced entry and despite some superficial ransacking, nothing of value was missing, including the cash in the victim's possession, so that theory did not seem to hold either. Sef had tried for months to create false trails as he had been planning the murder of his family for a long time. Other than the fabrication of an email that showed Sef's attempts at implicating a business rival of Teddy in the murders that I told you about, he had also staged an attempted burglary on 30th May. A breakthrough came when Sef's fingerprint was matched to a series of product poisoning letters which matched the address searches on his PC. Sef had sent threatening letters to a particular large store saying that he was a disgruntled employee and that he had poisoned some of the products. That all came to light as Sef's doing. You'll see the connection later. I know it's getting confusing here, but stay with me, guys. According to forensic information, Claudine had died around 4:30 p.m., whereas Mum Loiva had died a few hours later, and the last to have been killed was Teddy. Guys, now, it was peculiar that the killers would take the risk of waiting in the house for hours and hours until each person came in and then killed them one by one. Very weird. So, lots of question marks and people were talking. The funeral was attended by lots of people, and Sef, looking very, very sad, sang Mariah Carey's "Sorry I Never Told You All I Wanted to Say." I'm going to play you a little bit of the song that he sang. Standing before the three caskets, Sef Gonzalez' voice rang through the church as lots of shocked mourners wiped away their tears.
Papa, Mama, Dida. Sorry, I never told you all I wanted to say. And I know eventually we'll be together one sweet day.
Many thought the singing was an odd gesture, though. Meanwhile, the investigations continued, and Sef was also becoming a person of interest by this time. And after noticing an emotional detachment and many inconsistencies in Sef's story, such as his claims of performing CPR on his dead parents and no evidence of any intruders, police began to suspect fairly strongly that he was involved. A few days after the murder, Sef had visited the family's accountant, inquiring about his, guess what, guys? Inheritance. His inheritance estimated at 1.5 million in Australian and another inheritance of 1.3 million in Australian dollars in the Philippines, which is a lot of money. As an apparent victim of the crime, he was also eligible for a $15,000 payout, and Gonzales then moved to a luxury apartment in Chatswood and informed his relatives that the police had asked him to live there until the perpetrators were arrested. The families believed him and paid all the expenses for the apartment. Later, when the relatives asked the police said that they had never asked Sef to live in any apartment anywhere in particular. So that was a lie as well. Sef put a deposit of $5,000 on a $173,000 Lexus, telling the dealership he would be using his inheritance to pay for the vehicle. Sef had also traded in his parents' cars and pawned his dead mother's jewelry and made a tidy sum. He also told relatives in the Philippines that he had a brain tumor and asked his godmother in the Philippines for $190,000 for the alleged surgery. But she did not give him any money. By this time, people were realizing that this young man was a pathological liar and a dangerous narcissist. Remember his website I talked about, guys? The so-called Daisy Jazz who ran the website? It was run by Sef on his own. A person by the name of Daisy Jazz never even existed. Another pathological lie. Size 7 bloody shoe prints were found of human brand shoes at the murder scene. Though the particular pair of shoes were never found, the police found a box that matched a size 7 human brand empty shoebox in Sef's room. When questioned about the empty box, Sef quickly said that they were not his shoes and that his parents had bought the pair to send to a relative in the Philippines. Guys, if you are sending someone a pair of shoes, would you take them out of the box and then send them off and keep the box? Why? Though the shoes the killer wore or his clothes were never found, the police noticed that there was a tinge of blue paint on the new clothes Sef was wearing. The blue paint matched the racial abuse poster on the wall, apparently left by the killers, and also the same paint was found in a few tins in the Gonzales garage. Sef, who really couldn't account for his whereabouts between 4 and 7 p.m., was questioned again, and Sef changed his story and said that he had visited a brothel. He then rang the sex worker who was due to work there at that time and asked her to vouch for him. She refused. She told the police that she wasn't even rostered to work that day. Now, that was another lie that Sef was caught in. Sef also tried to bribe a taxi driver to say he took Sef to the brothel, and the taxi driver had agreed to support Sef for a fee. But once confronted by the police and told that this was an investigation of a triple murder, the taxi driver immediately withdrew his statement. So, Sef caught in another lie. Based on all this, the police were focusing on Sef more and more, and his internet records were searched. His phone calls began to be recorded, and he was befriended by an undercover policeman. Sef was put under police surveillance every minute of the day. Guys, remember the threatening email I talked about, which was believed to have been sent to Teddy Gonzales by a business rival? Well, it was found out to be by Sef as well, to implicate this man in the murder he was planning to commit. This man was a business rival of Teddy, but he had nothing to do with the murders. Sef had also tried weeks before the murders to poison his family, and he had got some poisonous seed that he had mixed as instructed by the website he bought it from, and had placed this canister of the poison mixture in his room. The police found, meanwhile, evidence of research into the poisons by Sef and the ordering of the toxic plant seeds. Also, they found out that Sef's mother had had a severe attack of food poisoning a couple of weeks before that and had been very, very sick and hospitalized. She got better and came home. Then Sef must have thought of taking more drastic measures. The police had found the canister of the poison mixture in his room and had taken it away. Sef had told his friend Sam that he had always kept a baseball bat in his car in case he had to defend himself. You will see how that connects to the incidents, guys. Just keep listening, just a little more. Around 4:30 p.m. that day, that's 10th of July 2001, armed with a baseball bat from his car, the baseball bat from his car, and with 2 kitchen knives from a knife block in the Gonzales kitchen, Sef had entered Claudine's bedroom and assaulted her while she was studying. There he strangled her, struck her head with the bat at least 6 times, and then stabbed her multiple times with the smaller of the knives. The cause of Claudine's death was a combination of compression of the neck, blunt force head injuries, and abdominal stab wounds. Guys, you think it was revenge for telling on him about his fake report cards from uni? Or was it his greed that he would want to share the inheritance if he let Claudine live? What do you think? Decide for yourselves, guys. I think it is probably the greed for the inheritance more than anything else. Sef Gonzales then waited until his mother Loiva arrived home at about 5:30 p.m. After she entered the house, Gonzales attacked her with one of the kitchen knives, killing her in the living room. Sef inflicted a horrific plethora of slashes on his mother's body before cutting her windpipe off. At around 6 p.m., Gonzales' maternal aunt had tried to visit the house with her son. This is the dead lady's sister. She noted her nephews and sisters' cars in the driveway, but the house was dark and unusually quiet, especially given that the family kept 6 small dogs inside who were quite noisy. Looking into the house through a curtain or through some glass, she noticed movement and left with her son after deciding not to enter after making many calls from outside the gate that went unanswered. She had later said that she got a terrible feeling and just wanted to leave there quickly. Teddy then arrived home at 6:50 p.m. After entering the house, Teddy had no time to work out what was happening, I'm sure, when Sef attacked him with one of the kitchen knives and inflicted multiple stab wounds into his neck, chest, back, and abdomen. One of the stab wounds penetrated Teddy's right lung, another penetrated his heart, and another partially severed his spinal cord. Teddy sustained defensive wounds, suggesting that there was a struggle. After killing his family, Sef Gonzales disposed of the murder weapons, the knives from their own kitchen, and the baseball bat, which were never found. He denied his involvement in the crimes. What happened to the baseball bat that he always had in his car? And the clothing and the size 7 running shoes he was wearing at the time of the murders? They were never recovered. Sef Gonzales was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of threatening product contamination. He was refused bail and held on remand in Silverwater Correctional Center. During this time, he wanted to use his inheritance money to fund his defense, and that was denied. The murder trial took place during April and May 2004, prosecuted by Mark Tedeschi. The trial revealed that Sef Gonzales had planned the murders for several months. Gonzales was a pathological liar, and this moron had thought he had a brilliant plan to annihilate his entire family so he could be the sole beneficiary of the multi-million-dollar inheritance. On 20th May 2004, Sef Gonzales was found guilty of all 4 charges. He was sentenced on 17 September 2004 to 3 concurrent life sentences without parole for the murders of his sister and his mom and his dad. Justice Bruce James remarked that, "I consider that the murders show features of very great heinousness and that there are no facts mitigating the objective seriousness of the murders, and hence the murders fall within the worst category of cases of murder at common law." Until now, Sef Gonzales continued to serve his sentence at Goulburn Correctional Center, where he continues to profess his innocence. Now guys, before I go, you will also be interested to know that someone has bought the North Ryde house located at 6 Collins Street, built by the Gonzales in year 2000, where the triple murders happened, and someone is living there. A lot of people I have spoken to feel that such property should be broken down. I don't know what you think about that. However, guys, imagine the vibes there, some say. When the house was put on the market shortly after the murders, it remained unsold for 3 years due to its notoriety. Its eventual sale aroused controversy in October 2004 when prospective buyers, a Buddhist couple from Taiwan, decided to purchase the property. However, they had not been informed of the events that had taken place in the house by the realtors L.J. Hooker. The couple had paid a massive deposit, but found out from a newspaper article about the gruesome history of the house and wanted the sale reversed immediately. L.J. Hooker had initially refused to reverse the sale as they had no legal obligation of disclosure, but eventually refunded the buyers their $80,000 deposit due to the bad publicity it caused. The company was then also fined $21,000 by the New South Wales Office of Fair Trading after this incident. The New South Wales government, after this event, made it illegal to fail to disclose information that could have a substantial impact on the value of a property. In November 2005, the house was sold for $720,000, $80,000 less than the previous price, to a buyer who was informed of its history. Guys, this story brings to mind the Jennifer Pan case that happened in Canada. I have done the story very recently and I have left a link below for you to watch it if you have not watched it yet. Hope you like, and press that subscribe button, guys, and leave your comments on what you think of this young man Sef and his actions. So twisted and insanely narcissistic and crazily dangerous. See you again, guys. Good night.